Good morning. We're almost halfway through, so things will continue to develop, and the story will continue to develop. But I do need the. It's on the lantern. Okay, thank you. I'm Mike James. I've got two roles here. MESA International is a global organization for manufacturers and the industries that supply them. It's a very interesting organization because it does serve global manufacturing companies, and they don't really look at national interest. They look at the interest of a manufacturer across all of their plants all over the globe. And my other role is at ATS as chair and as CTO. And this role is interesting because we've talked a lot about the theory of Industry 4.0, but what we have to do is we have to turn that into practice. We have to implement it. We have to get down to the brass tacks, as it were, and get on with the implementation. And that brings obviously many problems with it. And it's not about where we want to be or what we'd like to do. It's about what is actually possible today. So what can we do today? And what if we do something that will block our path to Industry 4.0 in the long term? So I haven't yet heard the term this morning, the self-organized plant. But that's one of the important goals of Industry 4.0, is that our plants become self-organized. The idea that we people provide the smarts, we provide the intelligence, but the plant will actually be operating independently and autonomously, making its own decisions and producing products. So, the company I work for is, as I mentioned, a global business. We have operations all over the world. The head office is in the Netherlands, which is where I also live, where I come from. And we can talk about Brexit, but let's not do that today. And let's get on to some real work. Lots of technologies. What do all those technologies mean? It means that we need knowledge. We need a lot of people who know a lot of things about the detail. Fascinating presentation from Unilever, the level of knowledge and experience and detail that they go into to understand their products and how they're going to be used is quite phenomenal when you think about it. There are people there who really know what they're doing. And we have to have people who know what they're doing in all these aspects of smart technologies in order to be able to move forward. So the title of my presentation is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly of Industry 4.0. So who has read the report? Who's read the Industry 4.0 report? Anybody? One person? That's typically of what we find, is nobody's really gone back to the source about what does it really mean. Everybody's reading information and hearing interpretations about the original German report delivered to Angela Merkel in April 2013, explaining the vision of Industry 4.0. And there is a very clear vision in there. It has wide government and industry support. We talk about technology and IT orchestration, because it's not just the IT that's changing, and we all know the examples of Apple and Amazon and the blah blah in that world, but in our world of manufacturing, that we have to deal with physical objects and real technology controlling that equipment. We know that the Internet of Services is a major opportunity for manufacturers. What does it mean? Otis Lifts, as an example, they supply lifts for office buildings, hotels, etc. It's a great product. Do they supply a product or do they supply a service? They're now moving into the service model. So what they're doing is, as they deploy a lift in a building, they're collecting all of the data from the sensors that they've implemented, putting it into a cloud, analyzing it, and deciding when they need to come and repair the lift. pretty straightforward. But they're also thinking, hey, this is how the lifts are being used, so maybe it's a really good idea if in the morning we put the lifts at the bottom of the building, if it's an office building, and maybe somewhere in the middle if it's a hotel, because people are going down to breakfast. It's not that difficult to imagine. But with all the data, the actual use of the lift, we can perfect it, we can optimize it. We can reduce the amount of wear and tear on the lift. So, hey, let's not sell lifts, let's sell the service. We will take ownership, and the hotel, the building operator, will simply pay us a monthly fee. And of course, if we do this well, we can increase our margins. So Industry 4.0 is very much about manufacturers increasing their profit margins through some clever moves from changing your business model and indeed changing your factory and the way your factories work. We've got great support from governments. Finally, the government has said, hey, manufacturing is important, let's do something about it, let's bring it up. We've got skills that we need to address. So there are lots of opportunities out there. These are the wonderful things about Industry 4.0. It opens up a huge number of opportunities for manufacturers, for new companies coming into the market. We talked earlier about, Alan referred to medicines which are designed for your body. Not somebody else's body, but for you. We have a small startup in the Netherlands that's now producing food, meals for hospital patients, which are based upon their blood tests, etc., etc. So they're getting the food that they need to help them to recover. Very expensive, so of course it goes to the wealthy people at the moment, but it's something which will develop further and further as we connect everything together. But what's bad? Well, you know, we have to deal with rapid technology, IT, and social changes. So it's really hard to plan, and it's very hard to predict what is happening, what is going to happen. We meet very few organizations that have a strategy for coping with the rapid changes. Again, Alan's example of the phone, it's taking place in the factory as well. Equipment is changing very quickly. Upgrades. We see companies like Tesla delivering cars which can auto-drive. All the sensors are on the vehicle, but they don't switch it on. But they can upgrade it constantly with better and better versions of the software. So when are you going to let loose of the steering wheel and allow it to drive you? The hype as well. Misinformation, misunderstanding. This can cause considerable grief at companies. It means that it's very hard for you to find your direction, to make your plans, because companies are selfish. They are going to sell you products and services which benefit them and not necessarily the manufacturing company. And this is where businesses like ATS step in to bridge that gap between the hype and the reality of what is possible today. There's also some very bad things. If you don't adapt, will your business survive? Will you fail? On the other hand, if you make poor decisions, there's also a chance that you will not survive and that you will fail. So manufacturers are looking at this very carefully, but they're reluctant to move. So what we see is a reluctance to move. Great to see Unilever making some of those decisions and moving forwards, but I'm quite sure that it affects their bottom line. So they have to dare to make that operational investment to move forward, because at the end of the day, manufacturers need to make money, and the ROI has got to be there for them to make that investment. What's ugly? Well, we have a lack of standards, and even worse, we now have standards proliferation. So we have the US creating standards. They've also got multiple standards. We have Europe creating standards. We have the UK creating standards. And guess what? Nobody's working together. The Asians are the only ones who are smart. They're just going to use everybody else's standards without going through all the pain of putting these standards together. What do we mean by standards? That horrible word, interoperability, the ability to connect all these systems and have them communicate with each other. Can you imagine that maybe in some manufacturing plants the weather can be important? Yes. The temperature, the outside temperature can be important for certain processes. So why don't I connect my systems into the weather forecast? Very important for farmers, right? They've been doing that forever. There's lots of things that you can think about, lots of data that you can use, but you need to be able to communicate, yeah? Ignoring security issues and system robustness. The numbers are 90 billion devices. There's going to be 50, doesn't matter how many figures it is. If 10% of them actually went wrong, that's 5 billion. If 1% of them go wrong, you get my drift. It only takes a few sensors to go wrong, and guess what? Your fridge won't have ordered 1 liter of milk. It'll have ordered 100 liters of milk, and it'll be standing at the doorstep waiting for you when you get home. There's going to be lots of these stories. I can't wait to hear them all. I've seen many already, actually. There are some beautiful examples on YouTube already of a sensor going wrong, and bing, you know, your life gets turned upside down by computers. Yeah? We expect artificial intelligence to replace people, and it's coming in all sorts of forms. Agents for the banking system, they decide, those agents, those automated agents decide whether you get a loan or not. There's no person there anymore. And these decisions are creeping in, and they're going to have an effect. Will we have social unrest? In some of the countries that I present in, this is a really important question that always comes from the audience. What about the people? Belgium, for instance, real concern. Quite a socialist country, and it's, you know, there's a lot of union representation still there. Very worried about this. Other countries you see less concern. But the level of investment required is enormous. The level of skill, redeployment, retraining is enormous. Lots of challenges that we have to go through. But the business drivers, has been defined here by McKinsey, are obvious. I know you can't see the screen very well, but essentially in this circle we see different areas where we think Industry 4.0 is going to have an impact. Yeah? We see forecasting accuracy improving by 85%, which makes it much easier for us to manufacture products according to a plan. It changes where we are today. We see 40 to 55% increase of productivity in the technical professions through the automation of technology work. We see less machine downtime because we can predict and we can maintain very easily. Are these tools there? Could you go out and could you start deploying them? Yes, they are. As was said yesterday, those of you who were here yesterday, a lot of the technology is there, but we need to tie it together. We need to be able to knit it together and get it working to our advantage. So, will companies invest? Now, what's happening today is that the government is putting a lot of money, and the EU and a lot of other organizations are putting a lot of money into manufacturing. Our company is also benefiting from subsidies that we're receiving to develop plants. One of my colleagues here has been heavily engaged in robotic assembly. What happens when one robot fails? Another robot takes over the task. The line will run slower, but it will continue to run. A lot of research, a lot of money going in. There's no ROI to be able to do that development without the subsidies, without the experimental work. We couldn't actually get it done and deliver a return on investment. So let's take an example. We have a hearing aid plant in Asia. The cost of the plant is 400 million. I won't give too much away about who they are, Obviously, it's confidential information. And we put together an Industry 4.0 smart manufacturing plan for them to reduce their cost base by 40 million. So taking it from 400 to 360. The estimate of the cost to do that was 80 million. It's not bad, right? We get 40 million back every year for investing 80 million. But here's the trick. The company isn't owned by, a publicly quoted business. It's owned by private equity. And they want to get the company ready to sell it. And their numbers are very different. The way they calculate things are very different. They invest that 80 million. The 40 million of saving, they can sell that business for 10 times the value of the profit, which means that 40 million is worth 400 to them. 400 million to them. So they are going to do it. And that's what we're seeing today, is the market in Asia is exploding already. We're already seeing a very aggressive Industry 4.0 smart manufacturing approach. Why is this happening? They're scared that they will lose their manufacturing back to Europe and North America, back to the industrial countries. We started this Industry 4.0 journey to get manufacturing back, to bring it back closer to the consumer market, and it probably will happen because we want to be able to, also from an environmental point of view, we want to manufacture closer to the consumer. But believe me, I do think that those manufacturers who have the guts to put the money in and get moving, but with a good plan, a logical plan, what can you do today and what can you do tomorrow? So understand your strategy, and within that, start to make those investments that you need, and maybe also to seriously think about bringing manufacturing back to the industrial countries, building new plants based on smart concepts, because there is a genuine investment return available to those manufacturers who do it. So it's worth having a go at it, and I would encourage everybody to set up those working groups that you need, to work with external consultants to develop those plans and to start the Industry 4.0 journey. But hey, ladies and gentlemen, maybe it would be a really good idea if you all read the report. It's only 80 pages long. It's not that bad. It might put you to sleep, but seriously, you'll learn a lot from it. Thank you very much indeed.